erosional nonconformities developed in that system. The point of this is to point out to you that, again, when you look at an outcrop in the field, you have to ask yourself the question, what's going on in terms of why am I seeing these kinds of thicknesses? Why am I seeing nonconformities? Why am I seeing breaks in the record? And it's tied to the interaction of these three factors. Now, you'll notice in trying to deal with this, he does what is a very simplistic thing. He holds two things constant and allows one to vary. Well, Mother Nature is not that accommodating because Mother Nature will change sedimentation rates, will change sea level, changes in sea level, and change rates of subsidence. So when you have the three of them all acting together, you can see how complicated it can get. So when you look at the development of stratigraphic packages, you're looking at elements of sequence stratigraphy, obviously. And sequence stratigraphy typically looks at packages of sedimentary rocks that were deposited during a single cycle of sea level change. And this is the classic picture of change of sea level, where you have an amplitude and a cycle period, obviously, this being a half cycle, and you have these things called inflection points, and these represent where you have the greatest change of either generation or destruction of accommodation, shown by the relative length on these axes. So the inflection point here represents the point in the cycle where you see the greatest amount of accommodation space being generated, and on the downside, that's the point of the greatest loss of accommodation space. So obviously, the interaction of these various factors give rise to transgressions and regressions, and as most of you know or should know at this point, what the definition of a transgression and regression is. Transgression is a change in the location of the shoreline. There's nothing to do with rising sea level or falling sea level. Well, it has something to do with rising or falling sea level, but it is the movement of the shoreline. If the shoreline moves towards the continent, that's a transgression, however that's caused. Because you could have subsidence of the continent occurring faster than lowering of sea level. And when you combine those two things, you end up with a transgression, even though sea level is falling. Okay. And similarly, that would be, well, the force regression will occur, even if you hold the continent with no subsidence or uplift. If you have a rapid fall of sea level, that will generate a forced regression, or it's called a forced regression. And so the regression, by definition, then, is the movement of the shoreline away from, or towards the ocean, or towards the body of water, and away from the continent. And this kind of cyclicity activity of these things gives rise to the sedimentary packages that we talk about in sequence stratigraphy. And the factors that we just talked about, subsidence, sea level changes, and sediment supply, I'm going to say these factors affect sediment wherever it occurs. Of course, that's not true. That statement is true when you're dealing with marine continental systems. If you're up on a continent, subsidence and sediment supply are important players. I guess sea level is a bit of interest, because if sea level drops over here in the middle of the continent, that will have an effect because of downcutting of rivers and things of that kind. But obviously, sea level is of less importance in the mid-continent than it is on the margins of the continent. So, to get the best appreciation, if you will, for the effects of these processes, you're best doing it where you have a standard reference. Where you have a standard of reference, and that standard of reference obviously is a shoreline. And what I plan on doing for a little bit today, and then on Monday we go through some of the settings in a sequence stratigraphic sense to show how the interaction of these various factors produces different packages of sedimentary materials. And you should all be familiar at some level with this kind of diagram, where we look at there's a hierarchy of stratigraphic cycles that we deal with, and obviously in the upper part of the diagram we are looking at a very large scale cyclic event. Major changes in shoreline position, obviously, and here we're coming down in this direction to the lower part of the diagram, we are looking at progressively smaller and smaller packages of sedimentary material responding to different scale issues. So at the small end of sequence stratigraphy, we have these things called parasequences, and these are the products of short-term interactions, because we're dealing with very small thicknesses and aerial extents here, obviously. These are short-term interactions between sediment supply, accommodation space generation, and amplitude changes in sea level. Okay? And so these units, parasequence units, range from a meter to a few tens of meters in terms of their dimension. And of course, the geometric packaging that you see here is related to which of the three parameters is playing the game. So, for example, in this case, if you hold sea level constant at this point right here, and you can, as we say, you can hold the sedimentation rate constant also, but if the sedimentation rate exceeds the accommodation space generation, then you'll end up with a progradational package developed like this, in which the offshore marine deposits shown in gray, shallow marine littoral package sediments shown in the darker yellow, and alluvial and coastal plain pseudo-continental type deposits shown in the tan color, so that if you punch a hole in that sequence, you get a little parasequence, which is a coarsening upward sequence, which is what you get with progradation, obviously. Well, no, if you keep sea level. The shoreline will be there, okay? If we run the clock forward, here is your accommodation space, okay? Sediment being supplied in this direction will cause the shoreline to migrate in this direction.
Not really. It shows like not really. Not really.
Well, aggradation, of course, will occur when sea level or relative sea level and sedimentation roughly matches. Then you will get an aggradational cycle. Here, what we're saying is sea level is constant, but the sediment supply exceeds that, and so you will have sediment here, and you begin to fill in the accommodation space, and that's why the shoreline will migrate seaward. Okay. So in this example, this was kind of like the first picture we drew. If we now change sea level, in this case we increase sea level, what will happen when you do that, you will push the shoreline landward, okay, to get a transgression, assuming that the rate of sea level rise exceeds the rate of sediment supply. Again, if you match these things, you match them exactly, aggregation is what you typically want to see. But if you don't match them, then one thing becomes dominant. So a rapid rise in sea level will push the shoreline this way, okay? But then if you